by powers in the United States of America, whose name shall be mentioned at a later time by various people. My name is Pastor Nick Taliaferro. I served this city originally as the first Director of Faith-Based Initiatives, and then afterwards as the Executive Director of the Commission on Human Relations, and now I'm trying to get people to respect the fact that I am retired. But I am here today to share with you individuals of the faith community who will tell you why we need to be careful in the way we are responding to things that we are seeing. I will share with you some names, and they will come before you in this order, and they will talk to you about their concerns as we prepare to confront powers that may be arrayed against the citizens of this city for a variety of reasons that we feel might be specious and may need to be reconsidered. We will hear from ADA Amanda Hedrick, who's the supervisor of the DAO charging unit, from ADA Stephanie Costa, who is the immigration counsel for the district attorney's office, from ADA Caleb Arnold, who is the chief of the district attorney's office diversion unit. We'll bring those three before you in that order.
Let me jump. That's good. Thank you all for being here. These are, the names mentioned are all members of my team. Little change of plans. When I have my opportunity to speak towards the end, I will bring them up with me, and we will go through that. My bad for not clarifying that with Nick Taliaferro, who has been such a friend of the office and such a friend of the city for so many years. But we will be, actually we'll be hearing initially from faith leaders. We'll be hearing not only from Pastor Nick, but also from Rabbi Julie Greenberg and from Imam Kenneth Nordine. Reverend Sean James, whose church this is not here, or we'd be hearing from him. But at this time, I would respectfully ask that our faith leaders, Rabbi Greenberg, Imam Nordine, and also our MC, Pastor Nick Taliaferro, offer comments before we move on to the next speakers.
Thank you, DA. I'm Rabbi Julie Greenberg of Lev Ha'ir, Heart of the City, congregation in Center City. And I'm here today to honor the Constitution and also the memory of my own grandparents, who were immigrants, who came from places of desperation, who were penniless, didn't know the language, came to this country. In the Hebrew Scriptures, the phrase, "welcome the stranger," is the most frequently cited command in the entire Hebrew Scriptures. I think it appears 34 times. And so when I think of my grandparents building lives here from nothing, hardworking people, and I think about my own neighbors in this city now being rounded up, it is just morally shameful. It's unconscionable. This city knows how to speak truth to power. But the problem is when there is a bully in the highest office in the land who is raising up authoritarianism, there's a moral drama going on. There's a narrative battle going on. We know we need mass peaceful protests to stop these harms. But what Mr. Trump and his buddies would love to see was for us to take his bait, to lose our focus, to lose discipline, to become what I've heard called a Trump chump. We need mass peaceful protest, whoever you are, wherever you are, protecting the Constitution and protecting our neighbors. And we will protect the Constitution. We will protect the fabric of this society. Trump tries to frame the problem as us exercising our own free speech rights in a democracy. We will keep the peace, and we will speak truth to power with the moral courage to protect the fabric of our society. Let's all show up.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kenneth Nordine. I am the resident imam of the Philadelphia Messiah Clear Muhammad School. I'm also a Vietnam veteran, so I can remember the turmoil from the 60s, the protests, the anger because of perceived and real injustice, because positions and decisions were made that were not in the best interests of common people. Now, we are being provoked, and a lot of the provocation is transferred to us through media. And so we really can't get away with it or from it because we see it on a constant basis. And so it is natural and normal for us to be angry because no one who can see a promise that was made that is now rescinded or broken. And there's a promise given you're tired, you're poor, that is in the harbor in New York City inviting people to come. And many people have come because of that invitation. And you can't invite someone into your house and then all of a sudden want to throw them out without any just cause. So we have a moral indication. We are angry, but we can't allow ourselves to be ruled by our emotions because the anger that is being provoked, there's a reason for it. And that reason is to supersede the laws that we all hold to be dear. And if laws can be suspended, then that endangers all of us. The laws that are being suspended right now that are affecting and impacting the immigrant community are done with not a real long-term plan, but they're being done to provoke and to get a response from common citizens. So we are responding, but our response has to not be based on our anger and our feelings. We have sensibilities, but it has to be transferred into things that make sense. It makes sense for us. We are a nation of law. In order to have order, we have to make sure that laws are obeyed. We have a very competent legal team in our city, the district attorney, and he has assured and ensured that laws will be obeyed. And laws that have to be obeyed or have to be enforced, because there is a consequence to breaking law. And the consequence has to be, but we have to look at how we triage things. Because you don't want to spend all your energy and resources locking up jaywalkers when criminals are running loose. And the attention and the focus is on common people who have issues. But those issues can be resolved in a manner that doesn't provoke anger, doesn't provoke violence, doesn't provoke further breaking of the law. So we are here to say that our moral indignation can't permit us and shouldn't drive us to be angry and to be in violation of law. We have to trust and we have to look at what all of us hold dear as standards. And those standards are what are the legal prescriptions, no matter how long they take. Because my grandfather came here in the 40s from Barbados, and he was part of Cecil B. Moore's team who protested against the injustice that was visited among those who tried to enroll in Divine College. Black people couldn't go, but they didn't tear the walls down. What they did, they were persistent in their efforts to establish justice. And we have to be persistent because what we are facing right now is just round one. And we have a long way to go. So let us be persistent, let us all stay in the ring, but let us not provoke any consequence that will take the focus off of where the focus should be. Because the focus has to remain on those who are really trying to take the rights of all of us. And if we can keep our focus, together we represent, as was said by an earlier American, the ones who have the ultimate power is not the president, it's not the Congress, it's not the courts. The ultimate power lies with the citizens. And we are the citizens, we are the constituents of this American society. So let us all remain vigilant in responding, but let us not be provoked into unnecessary anger, because again, we are being provoked for reasons. And the reason is that if you respond to the provocation, then you now become the reason for the turmoil rather than the one who is initiating something that is unjust and will affect all of us. So again, let us respond in a manner that shows that we are not just working on our sensibilities, but we are going to make sense out of this, no matter how long it takes. And again, our legal teams will help us to make sense legally so we know what steps to take. Because again, we don't want to be outlaws ourselves. Thank you.
We stand as a triumvirate here, a rabbi, an imam, and I, a Christian minister. And we stand in unity, recognizing the fact that there are times when anger is justifiable. And when people are angry because of injustices, perceived or real, they can and will react. But it is our task to remind our people, whether they are of the Jewish community, the Muslim community, the Christian community, and all in between, that the one thing that we have the greatest amount of control over are our own reactions. I was there 5 years ago when the outrage that followed the death of George Floyd led to people allowing themselves to become used by their anger to do things that transformed the story from one of injustice of a man who died innocently to outrage by others looking on at the reaction of those individuals because they lost control of how they strategically used their justifiable anger. We want to make sure that we don't become unwitting saps by those who would become agents provocateurs in our society and try to lead us into reacting in ways that take away from the real story, which is despotism and authoritarianism. And we will be reminding our people from pulpits, from one border of this city to another. And we'll be doing it with passion, and we'll be doing it with outrage, but we will be doing it strategically and with control. And I thank my colleagues in ministry who join us today. Also joining us, there are individuals who have committed themselves to working within this city to try to make sure that Philadelphia becomes a place that we all wish for it to be. This young man has been dedicating himself to help other young men and women to find pathways to acting constructively in the face of destructive behaviors. We bring before you now at this time community activist Anthony Brown.
How y'all doing? My name is Ant Brown. I'm currently on the communications team for here at the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office for the great Larry Krasner. Thank you for this position. And I'm also here wearing another hat as a community activist and a youth advocate. I mentor young people. I help keep them out of trouble and connect them to resources. And I work with the demographic that we can say is probably, some people might say troubled or whatever. I believe they just need to be encountered by the right mentors. And I'm here to deter y'all and not more so warn y'all, but try to encourage y'all to go out and peacefully protest. You have the right to protest. Just please do not go for the bait and get caught up looting and destroying your city. Please, please, please don't. You have the right to protest, but far too many times when these type of situations go on, when there's unrest and stuff like that, we can't let our other forces influence us to destroy our own community. So go out one more time and peacefully protest, exercise your right to protest, let your voice be heard for what you really care about, but please do not destroy your future by destroying your community. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. We appreciate that. And now we'd like to bring before you at this time a gentleman who has lived the experience of understanding the rigors of what it means to be an immigrant in America. But better than that, he has devoted his skill, his talent, and his abilities to helping others as an attorney. We'd like to bring before you Mr. Vofi Jabate, who will bring a unique perspective as both a practitioner of the law and as a man who has lived the experience.
Good afternoon. My name is Vofi Jabate. I came to Philadelphia 34 years ago as an immigrant, running from the Civil War in Liberia. Like Einstein, I have contributed my share to the American experience and success. Like Tesla, who was the air conditioning engineer, I am contributing my story to make America great. Antonio Permanio, a nuclear physicist that was also recognized as an American, I'm here to say to the rest of the world, to Philadelphia, to America, that we come here to make America great. I look forward to making sure that immigrants are not lawbreakers, but law-abiding citizens. Our success can be seen in what we've done in Southwest Philadelphia by creating what is now one of the biggest promotion and development opportunity in Philadelphia, the Africa town. So we as immigrants are not lawbreakers, we are law-abiding. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to represent the immigrant community who have come to Philadelphia seeking refuge.
Thank you, Vofi. We appreciate that, and the gentleman that stood with you. At this time, we come now to the person under whose auspices we have assembled today. As a citizen of the city of Philadelphia and as someone who enjoys peace, I appreciate the fact that our district attorney recognizes that there's more to justice than simply the enforcement of raw codes. That's a part of ink on a page, but that justice is the seeking of those things that bring peace and fairness and equity to all people. And we would like for you to make welcome our district attorney, Mr. Larry Krasner.
Thank you. I would like to invite my immigration counsel, Stephanie Costa, also chief of our diversion unit, previously immigration counsel, Caleb Arnold. I would also like to invite Aunt Brown to stand up here with me as part of the team at the DA's office, and Amanda Hedrick, who is our chief of charging. There are a few things I have to say here, but I want to start with some nuts and bolts, and that is making sure the facts are right. There was some reporting, whether it was on social media or elsewhere, having to do with, quote, arrest, unquote, that occurred over the last couple of days with reference to protest activity. And I just want to make sure the facts are clear, because I think it speaks to the care that we will be exercising all weekend in the event that there are conflicts involving people who are out there, whether they are protesters simply following their free speech rights under the U.S. Constitution, or they are other people who engage in criminal activity. But I want to make sure we get the facts straight, because there was some reporting to the effect of 15 protesters arrested in the last couple of days, and that is not the whole story. It is my pleasure to bring forth the very talented, very experienced Amanda Hedrick, who is the chief of our charging unit, a unit that works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, through holidays, dealing with all of the arrests and potential arrests that are brought to us by the Philadelphia Police and by others. She and I spoke in some detail with reference to these 15 or so different individuals we learned about and dealt with over the last couple of days. Amanda will give you some details on that. Amanda Hedrick.
Good afternoon. Of the 15 or so arrests that DA Krasner has mentioned, only 2 of those arrests were submitted to the district attorney's office for charging. That means that any of the remaining arrests were handled by police. And what that generally means is that the police have released those individuals with CVNs, or civil violation notices. Those are essentially tickets that carry no criminal penalties, and those cases are not handled or prosecuted by the district attorney's office. Of the 2 cases that were submitted to our office in consideration of charges, one, the recommended charge was disorderly conduct. The other, the recommended charge was aggravated assault that was against a law enforcement officer. As we did with any other case that comes through our office and through the charging unit, we reviewed all of the available evidence in those cases and in fact requested additional evidence and investigation from Central Detective Division. After careful consideration of those cases, review of all of the evidence, and discussions with commanding officers at the police department and discussions with the district attorney, charges in both of those matters were declined with the support of the police department.
Thank you, Amanda. Let me just get a little bit more specific with that. So, 25 years ago, under the administration of Lynn Abraham, frankly, they almost liked prosecuting prosecutors more than they liked prosecuting homicides. Might explain why we had so many homicides. I'm not making that up. The reality is that when there was the sweeping arrest of 420 people at the Republican National Convention in 2000, many of those people were charged with multiple felonies. Many were charged with misdemeanors. It was a disaster for the city. It went on for 4 years. Nearly every single one was acquitted of every single charge. And yes, she assigned homicide prosecutors whose time was better spent on real crime to prosecute those non-crimes. That's what happened. We are dealing with a much more enlightened police commissioner at this time, much more enlightened city administration in Commissioner Kevin Bethel, and what he did in making a determination to bring civil violation notices here is quite similar to what he did when there was the breakup of the encampment at Penn several months ago. That was, rather than go the route of creating criminal records for people, having them in handcuffs, sitting in a jail cell, waiting many hours to go through a bail hearing and then fighting a case in court, he made a determination that he would rather give them what is essentially the equivalent of a parking ticket, something that they have the right to fight in a different venue, which is more administrative, but will not be handled by my office whatsoever. He felt that that was appropriate for a large number of those people. That's not my decision, that's entirely his. And so he did that. There were 2 cases in which the police initially believed that crimes had been committed that were worthy of charging in another way. One initially came to us as a recommendation for disorderly conduct charge as a misdemeanor. The other initially came to us as a recommendation for an aggravated assault charge because it involved some sort of an assault allegation in relation to law enforcement. We got the information, we looked at it, thank goodness for body-worn cameras, which shed a lot of light these days that was not always available previously. We looked at it, we asked them for more information. Before we made our determination, they said to us, do not charge these cases, okay? I have to commend them for that. I have to commend them for acting in good faith, for being honest brokers, for saying, initially we thought that these were crimes, but on closer inspection, looking not only at the evidence we presented you, but the additional evidence you requested, we are asking you to decline these charges. In one instance, it was because they did not see sufficient evidence for the charge. In the other instance, it turned out it was a misidentification. The person arrested was not the person who, in their view, had actually committed that crime. So that is admirable. That is integrity. That is care. That is what we like to see. And I do want you to understand, because I know that you will be getting more information from the police commissioner later today in a different press event, and from the mayor in a different press event. I do want you to understand that there's not a lot of sunlight between us here. We all agree about what needs to go down. We all agree what time it is and what needs to happen here. So let me go to that, because not only will Amanda Hedrick be on call all weekend to deal with any issues that may arise, so will I. And there will not be charges brought in relation to what I anticipate will be nonviolent protest activity that is protected by the Constitution I swore to uphold. There will not be charges brought without my eyes being on it. And by eyes being on it, I mean eyes looking at the video, seeing what the police documentation is, and talking through with a lot of very smart, very expert people here, what the law suggests and what justice looks like in these cases. We will be very careful, and I know, based on the experience I've had with this commissioner, not only yesterday, but also in terms of the management of the Penn campus, I know that there's going to be a lot of careful thought at that end as well. And that is perhaps, among other things, for this reason. Sadly, we need to talk about what is causing the commotion in LA. We cannot fall into the trap that Pastor Nick Taliaferro mentioned, where somehow the story of a torture murder by a police officer named Derek Chauvin that played out over 9 minutes on video and frankly scandalized the world, somehow that got written out of the narrative. And the narrative became, oh, but look at the reaction, as if there had not been a cause. It's really not that complicated. Criminals don't like me. Criminals don't like my administration. Criminals don't like me for a reason. And that is because, unlike the President of the United States, who has 34 felony convictions and therefore can candidly and honestly be called a criminal, which is what he is, unlike him, I believe in equality. He does not. You know this because of the talk about black pilots. You know this because of all this weaponization around diversity, equity, and inclusion. You know this by the fact that he has been endorsed in 2 separate election cycles by the Ku Klux Klan. You know this because his own grandfather was arrested as a member of the Ku Klux Klan, okay? You know what he is. He is a racist, he is a criminal, and he, very, very, very much like Adolf Hitler, does not believe in equality, who called equality a degenerate notion. Well, the documents written in the city of Philadelphia a long time ago said we hold these truths to be self-evident that all people are created equal. It is the bedrock of our democracy. It is the bedrock of our Constitution. It is the essence of it, and it has a very simple outcome, which is we have to apply the Constitution and the laws equally. Okay? So what does that mean? That means for anyone who understandably and properly is morally offended by separation of hardworking families, by trauma being served upon them, by a Nazified approach to deportation, they have every right under the United States Constitution, its First Amendment, the right of assembly and free speech, to engage in nonviolent social protest. It is not only legally permitted, it's actually a really good thing because it has always been a much better alternative to violence. And it becomes a way for the people to be heard in a democratic society so their elected officials can hear them and change things without violence. That's what it becomes. Contrast that with what we saw on January 6th in Washington, D.C., led by the criminal in chief. Contrast it with that, which was a deliberate provocation of violence to commit a whole variety of crimes that resulted in the deaths, directly and indirectly, of 5 different law enforcement officers. Contrast it with that, the world the criminal in chief would want. We reject crime. Criminals don't like us. So what that means is consistent with our sworn oath, we will carefully protect the rights of people to have their voices heard, to assemble, to do so in ways that are not violent, and to do so in ways that do not constitute other crimes. We will carefully protect that. That is our oath. But we will also hold accountable anyone and everyone, whether they are uniformed ICE agents or they are opportunistic criminals who would tuck in behind lawful protest in order to loot. We will hold all of them properly accountable. For anyone, talking to the president is kind of ridiculous because he's not listening to anybody and has no regard for the truth, and he never will. The notion that we are dealing with an individual who has advocated the sexual assault of women, who has been found in civil court to have sexually assaulted women, who has been determined to have engaged in fraudulent white-collar activity, who has been convicted of 34 different felonies in state court, the notion that we're actually going to talk to somebody like that in a way that is reasonable makes no sense, because we all know what he's actually up to. What he's actually up to is setting up a military overthrow of the United States, and he's doing it like every wannabe dictator and successful dictator has done in the past, which is that you have to scare the population and convince them that there's a bona fide emergency when there isn't. And what is that bona fide emergency? Well, historically, it was the Jews. Historically, it was, or is, the immigrants. Historically, it was the black people. That's what he's doing. That's who he is. And therefore, I want all of my Philadelphia friends and all of those people who are understandably provoked, outraged, and disgusted not to get it twisted. If you are doing what Martin Luther King would have done, you're going to be fine. That is the law, that is the Constitution, and those are the traditions of this country. You're going to be fine, and I'm going to make sure you're going to be fine. But ICE agents going beyond their legal rights, and yeah, some of their legal rights offend me, but that's not the point. If they have the legal right, they get to do it. But going beyond their legal rights, killing, assaulting, illegally handling people in violation of the law, denying them their due process in a way that constitutes a crime under the laws of Pennsylvania, you will be prosecuted. And you know that's true because you've been watching what we have done over the last 7 years when it comes to actually holding a very small number of Philadelphia police officers or Philadelphia correctional officers accountable for their crimes. You know we'll do it. F around and, well, you know the rest, right? You know that. But the same is true for anyone, and we did see a small amount of this with reference to the George Floyd protest. There were some people who decided it was time to go rob a gun store. You're not protesters, you're just criminals. You got nothing to do with that. You're just trying to take advantage of the situation, and you're going to get what you're going to get. Same is true for people who decided to burglarize pharmacies and light them on fire. You're going to get what you're going to get. That's crime. That is not protest. And you're going to be accountable for it. You see, here's the thing. We have a criminal in chief, and then we have his co-conspirators. You remember them from January 6th. He pardoned them all, including the head of the Proud Boys in Philadelphia. He pardoned him too. And by the way, Proud Boys, we are watching, just in case you've decided this is your opportunity, okay? The criminal in chief has co-conspirators. There in January 6th, we know who they were. They were his political supporters. They're a bunch of wackadoos who thought reptiles ruled the planet. I'm not making that up either. We know who they were. What we cannot have in Philadelphia is a bunch of Trump chumps. Hard to figure out. Trump chumps. We cannot have individuals who, because of their anger, because of their misunderstanding of history and how nonviolent social protest works, think it's okay to smash a plate glass window and steal a bunch of shoes. You will not find a photograph of Martin Luther King in his suit and tie coming out of a broken storefront with shoes under his arm. Therefore, don't do it, okay? It ain't that complicated. You also will not find photographs of Martin Luther King taking a punch at a police officer. In fact, what they did systematically, time and time again, they did this at the lunch counters. They did this when there were fire hoses. They did it at protests, is they taught their people that no matter what is done to you by law enforcement, by government, by haters, you cannot respond with violence. That is what they taught, down to the point of standing in lines and slapping each other. And yes, I have the photographs of that, so that they could train themselves not to react. The co-conspirator of the criminal in chief in Philadelphia, if there are any, will be the people who say, I think I'm going to break this window because I'm mad and I want some shoes. They will be the people who take a situation where they could have just submitted to being arrested and throw a punch. Those will be the co-conspirators with the criminal in chief. Criminals helping criminals. They will be the ones who give Donald Trump the lie that there's an emergency in Philadelphia that somehow justifies him in doing things that no other president has ever done. in the history of the country. They will not just be committing crimes against individual victims, they will be the ones enabling a military takeover, the destruction of rights of people who live in this city. And most of those people are not white. Let's call it what it is. That's what we're talking about. So we are here to encourage everyone and anyone who wishes to have their voice heard in the No Kings protest. Yes, Donald, I said no kings. We encourage you to come here. We encourage you to march. We encourage you to join in loud choruses and have your voice heard and do everything else that Martin Luther King would have done, and we will spend all day and all night protecting your rights to do that. But at the same time, if we have ICE agents or other law enforcement who go beyond what the law permits and commit crimes, they won't be accountable. And if we have people who try to tuck in behind lawful, proper protests to commit crimes, they will be held accountable. And the damage they will be doing will be even bigger than those crimes, because it allows this phony, fascistic narrative that there is an emergency that can only be addressed with U.S. Marines, okay? That can only be addressed by taking over, without the consent of a governor, the involvement of National Guard. National Guard and Marines are not actually trained to handle civilian policing. And we have seen in the Kent State Massacre, and we have seen in many, many, many other examples why this is so dangerous. But we cannot make it more dangerous by going beyond that careful preparation that we need. All right, so having stated that, sorry if I get a little fired up, it kind of happens.
Well, you're in a black church, so it's allowed.
Okay. You know what, that's quite a compliment. Thank you. I appreciate that. Having said that, I know that we have journalists here who are interested in this very important topic, and I will go in no particular order other than the one provided, which is Dan Snyder, Channel 3 CBS. Do you have any questions, sir?
Yeah, Mr. District Attorney, what do you make of the increase we've seen nationwide in these ICE operations, workforce operations, and reports that the administration is planning to send tactical ICE teams to the country?
Well, as you know, the criminal in chief was the master of the reality show, and there's nothing real about reality shows. Here's the truth. He has a tiny infrastructure to try to carry out the deportation of 12 human beings. They have only 20,000 ICE agents in the United States. And no, he can't make the Philadelphia police or the Philadelphia DA's office or the mayor help him enforce federal law, because the 10th Amendment is very specific that he can't. It's called the commandeering doctrine. The point I'm getting at is this: let us not confuse the hype with the reality. He can come up with things like, what is it, the 51st State Task Force or something? He can come up with these phrases. He can try to make sure Fox News has a tight shot on, 3 protesters that doesn't show the enormous military group around them. He can do all of this stuff. But ultimately, how many people is he actually succeeding in deporting? How many is it, as to how many people is this actually working? If you look at Philadelphia, certainly there are very alarming things going on. How many people? I mean, what we're hearing from Stephen Miller, another person who frankly has no business in American government, he should probably find another country where they don't believe in democracy. But if you listen to Stephen Miller, he's all mad because they're not deporting people fast enough. Does that sound like victory? It doesn't sound like victory to me. It sounds to me like what they're trying to do is produce some public relations, some high-profile media to scare people, and they have succeeded. Sadly, they have succeeded. We have a homicide case right now where we're trying to get the family of the victim and a witness who are not documented to help us prosecute it, and they're terrified. Thank you, criminal in chief, for making it hard for us to prosecute a homicide case in the name of, quote, public safety, unquote, with your 34 felonies. Thank you so much for that. Well done. We really appreciate you. As I said, criminals don't particularly like us, so that's kind of how it is. We have to keep on course. My oath is to uphold the Constitution and laws of the United States, and it is to seek justice, and that is what we are going to do. All right, let me see. We have Ricky Harris, Channel 6 ABC. Oh, I'm sorry.
You mentioned the National Guard. Is there any indication
You know, I'm going to do the governor. I'm going to do the governor and do the mayor the courtesy of not commenting on that, but of course that means you get one more question. I'm going to give them the courtesy of not responding because they are the closest to it. They would have the most information, and speculating on the mind of Donald Trump, it's a little bit like trying to figure out a spider. So I'll just leave it right there. Do you have another question? All right, thank you. Cristabel Mora, 10 Telemundo.
Mi pregunta va a ser en español.
Okay.
Ha habido un incremento de la presencia de agentes de ICE, no solamente en Filadelfia, sino en varios suburbios alrededor. De cara a todo lo que está ocurriendo a nivel nacional y con la presencia de múltiples agentes de inmigración alrededor de la ciudad, ¿hay alguna garantía para los activistas, las organizaciones proinmigrantes, de que no va a haber agentes de inmigración durante la protesta, quizá verificando la presencia de inmigrantes?
Lo que puedo decir es no tenemos ninguna razón para creer que ICE va a evitar las protestas. Claro que no hay muchos agentes de ICE, como dije antes, pero no tenemos ninguna razón para creer que personas que están usando sus derechos bajo la Constitución para expresarse pueden hacerlo de un modo seguro.
Muy bien, ¿hay alguna, puede darle el mensaje a la comunidad inmigrante en español sobre su derecho de salir a protestar el sábado? Lo hizo en inglés, pero quisiera que lo dijera también en español.
En español.
Brevemente.
Ok, lo que puedo decir a las personas que no tienen documentación en cuanto a su estatus de inmigración aquí es que tienen muchos derechos bajo la Constitución y las leyes de los Estados Unidos, y que yo específicamente, juntos con otros oficiales en esta ciudad, vamos a proteger sus derechos constitucionales, sus derechos de tener un proceso justo y sus derechos bajo las leyes en Estados Unidos.
I didn't know you could do that, sir.
Neither did I. It came on me. It must be where I am. No.
It's a gift.
It is a gift. I'm sorry. Can I do that in English? Yes. Okay. Well, obviously you speak Spanish. Well done. What I would like to say to undocumented immigrants who are in the United States is that the United States Constitution, the laws of the United States, and the laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania protect you in many, many, many ways. Part of my oath is to uphold the Constitution and the laws. And I know that the police commissioner and the mayor feel that way as well. We will all be here to make sure that your rights under the Constitution and the laws of the United States are protected. All right, let me see. Brian, I'm sorry. Oh, is that, all right. Well, we'll do that. Okay, Caleb Arnold, who is a very experienced immigration attorney, in addition to having been a prosecutor in the office for many years, has a piece of information, an important footnote that I'd like to let her provide to you on ICE's policy when it comes to free, or as they like to say, not so free speech.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to clarify that under previous guidance, under Biden, protest was protected from immigration enforcement under their enforcement priorities. They put out a memo. That changed under Trump, and protest is no longer protected from ICE enforcement, so they reserve their right to commit ICE enforcement during protest activities. So unfortunately, there isn't that same protection that used to be in place for non-citizens.
All right, before I forget, I do want to make sure to thank Pastor Sean James, who is the pastor of the Salt and Light Church here. The choice of this location was intentional, not just to avoid the 90-degree heat, but we are very close to a very substantial community of African immigrants and their families here, something that Vofi, who spoke earlier, knows a lot about, as he also runs ACANA, which is an organization that advocates on their behalf and works with them in many different ways. But I do want to thank Pastor Sean James, who has been a real asset in the city. Usually is here, but I know if he's not here, it's because he's doing incredibly important things today. Brian Sheehan of Channel 10 NBC.
So I had a question, and after just hearing what you just said a moment ago about protests, what would be your message then to individuals who are undocumented, who do plan to go to protest as early as Saturday?
It is not my position to tell them what they should or should not do. I just think they need to be fully informed so that they can make their decisions. Many immigrants are in the United States because they left a place where they were in danger of dying, because they were up against incredibly daunting circumstances, whether it was starvation or war, terrorism, vicious narcos, whatever it was. These are not fearful people. So it's not my position to tell them what risks to run or not to run. I just want to make sure that they're fully informed. Yes, sure. Introduce yourself.
I'm Stephanie Costa. I'm the current immigration counsel at the DA's office. Like the DA said, we can't guarantee certain things given the current circumstances. However, there are organizations all over the city, Latino, African, Southeastern Asian, who are collectively protesting and also letting their members know exactly what their rights are in the face of interacting with an ICE officer, especially in a protest situation, ICE or any other agency that is now enforcing. So I think for folks who are undocumented and worried, I think there's a lot of community resources. Our website has a bunch of them listed for people to get connected with other folks who can tell them what their rights are when interacting with ICE, whether that's in their home, in their workplace, or on the street while protesting.
Thank you, Stephanie. All right, let me see. Jennifer Lee, Fox 29.
Right here. Thank you for taking questions.
Sure.
So this Saturday, Philadelphia is expected to have the largest protest among the ones taking place nationally. What information does your office have to be passing along messaging about not destroying your communities and also warning potential bad actors who might be coming out this Saturday? And what has the communication been across city offices? And how is your office preparing and sharing information about press generally in Philadelphia?
Sure. We have been in close communication with the city. I was even face-to-face with the police commissioner, with whom I communicate all the time, but not always face-to-face yesterday, and this was one of the important topics that came up. So there has been a lot of communication. We had a representative this morning at an important meeting. You'll probably hear more about that at 3 o'clock. And I can tell you, I think we are very much on the same page, that we understand that we are to uphold the Constitution and the laws, and that we intend to continue to do that. I think it's good news that we're going to have very, very large protests. Obviously, those protesters need to follow the law. It ain't that hard. Do what Dr. King would have done. That would be my message. That's what you need to do. The message for anyone who's coming here to break the law, whether that is an ICE agent who figures they can go beyond what the law permits, or that is an opportunistic criminal who would try to tuck in behind free speech protest that is lawful and appropriate, is you're going to have consequences. You F around, you're going to find out. That is my message. And it applies because we believe in equality, because the law is to be imposed even-handedly. It applies whether you have a uniform and you have status, or you have no uniform and you have no particular status. The law applies to everyone.
Did your office get information about any potential activities that could be related to breaking the law this weekend?
I appreciate the question. It is not a question I'm prepared to answer, because we're just not trying to tell anybody who might be up to something what we know. They might find out later, but they'll be in a jail cell when they do. All right, let me see. Jimena Conde.
So ICE and CBP are slated to perform security at Miami's Club World Cup game this weekend. Do we know if they will be doing the same at Philadelphia's Club World Cup game? And if so, will they be conducting enforcement, or will it be limited to security?
Simply put, I don't know. I just hope they don't storm the field to deport the players. Anything else?
And I think you said this in Spanish. Do we have reason to believe that ICE will largely not be at the protest this Saturday?
We don't have reason to believe one way or the other. You know, we do know that there's nothing new about ICE operating in major U.S. cities. There's nothing new about their being on the street. And we know that when there are large gatherings of people, there's always the possibility that ICE would be there with a particular agenda. Better be lawful, because if it isn't, we're going to be talking about the commission of crimes under the laws of Pennsylvania. But we don't know, and frankly, under this administration, I would not expect to get truthful information from anyone who is in ICE and under the authority of the criminal in chief. Sherry Stone, Philadelphia Tribune. I will check with Amanda. I don't know that that ever even got to us. As you may know, a lot of things, police engage in a lot of activities. Sometimes they think a case is not worthy of charging, or they don't have evidence, or they're not able to make an arrest. That doesn't immediately ring a bell with me, but let me just check with Amanda to see if she has any information on that. Do we have any info? Okay. Well, good thing I talked to the person who knows. So the case to which you are referring, that actually is the case in which we were initially requested to bring aggravated assault charges, and it was determined by police that the person arrested had been misidentified. That is the case. You know, thus obviously, if the actual person who committed that crime is located, there may be valid charges there, but that's the case that you're referring to and I was referring to. All right, thank you. And last but not least, we have Geisha Torres. I'm sorry, I'm messing up that first name, my bad.
Voy a hacerla en español.
Okay.
¿Tiene conocimiento de algún operativo de ICE en lugares de trabajo o en iglesias aquí en Filadelfia?
I'm going to ask for the assistance of Steph Costa and also Caleb Arnold in answering that. I've certainly heard some information about it. But you want that answer in Spanish, not the English I'm speaking right now, right? You'd like my gringo español? Okay. Did you hear the question? Mm-hmm. Hear the question? All right, please. En español, por favor.
Inmigración no habla con nosotros por razones muy claras aquí. So, normalmente no tenemos comunicación con ICE, especialmente sobre lo que van a hacer adelante, porque no quieren que nosotros sabemos. So, no tenemos información en este momento sobre eso. Tenemos la misma información que ustedes tienen o escuchar en noticias y eso.
Y específicamente, ¿qué está haciendo la Fiscalía para proteger a los inmigrantes residentes de Filadelfia?
That's a Larry question.
Específicamente, ¿qué hacemos para proteger a la gente que son inmigrantes y viven en Filadelfia? Bueno, pues nuestra obligación, nuestra oración es que vamos a defender la Constitución y las leyes de Estados Unidos y de este estado, y por eso tenemos que proteger a esa gente. Es una parte básica de lo que hacemos. Además, tenemos la obligación de buscar justicia, y justicia tiene una dimensión moral, además de su dimensión legal, y por eso vamos a proteger a toda la gente de Filadelfia, y eso incluye los inmigrantes y incluye los inmigrantes que no tienen documentación. Por supuesto. Okay, I believe that ends our chat. Thank you so much for your patience. I truly appreciate it. And if we can be of further assistance as things develop over this weekend, hopefully nothing but good free speechy things, then we are available. All right, thank you all.
That was great.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, just not to be outdone.
Here we
Vaya
go,
con
here we go,
Dios.
here we go.
You know, that's, no, we're good.
We're good?
We're good.
He was going to be better.
I got
He's
to
gonna
tell you,
knock me out.
No, I got to tell you, I didn't know you could do that.
Heart, hustle, home. CBS News, Philadelphia.